What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. Today we are flying the Su-30 mod once again, and I have been privileged enough to receive early access to a new flight model update by the developers of the Su-30 Codename Flanker mod. And hopefully this should improve the thrust vectoring and overall flight dynamics and physics of the aircraft. And what a better way to do it than to showcase the new flight model by flying a full flanker thrust vectoring demonstration, which is what I'll be doing today using the Su-30MKM, the Malaysian Su-30 variant with the Thales HUD, and we'll be flying a combination of real-world thrust vectored maneuvers done by Su-30s in real life, as well as a combination of different thrust vectoring maneuvers that I have put together, which I think the Su-30 could definitely do. So sit back and enjoy the show.
We have 2 good engine starts. You're clear to disconnect the headset. We'll see you on the left with the pin. Thanks a lot.
We're off the brakes, full power, here we go. Now they have adjusted the profile drag of the aircraft, and it does seem to accelerate a little bit more slowly down the runway, which I think is a very welcome change, because the previous version did feel like a rocket ship. As we do a thrust vector takeoff, immediately transition into an extremely critically high alpha, slow speed pass away from the crowd, making us appear almost stationary to the crowd, and turn that into an almost vertical slight climb, as the Su-30 does have more than 1-to-1 thrust weight ratio at this weight. Push the nose all the way forward into level flight and a hard abrupt right turn for the next maneuver. Now I do think the Su-30 mod is a little bit sluggish like now to respond to initial pitch changes. The real aircraft does manage to break airflow a hell of a lot more quickly and more abruptly, and actually the real aircraft seems to kill all of its momentum from its initial direction of travel, i.e. forward, much quicker than the mod does, which makes the mod a little bit unrealistic occasionally, because you still have that forward momentum of the aircraft when it really should be a hell of a lot more draggy, a lot more induced drag, I think, as we do a -3G pass, which is extremely painful for the pilot, something the Malaysian Su-30 does, and also something the RAF Typhoon does, which I don't really understand why they do it. I mean, I know it's pretty cool, but I don't think the crowd appreciates just how painful it is for the pilot. So we transition this now into a vertical climb for a tail slide, or a bell in Russian, colical. For some reason, Rita, the advisory warning audio system in the Su-30 mod here, even in the Malaysian version, speaks in Russian. I don't really know why. I believe the Malaysians would probably have it in English. Somebody can correct me in the comments. We do a tail slide here. You'll see on the left hand side the real aircraft can slide for a hell of a lot longer on its tail than the mod can, and there's just no way around it. Also, the nose drops a hell of a lot more abruptly on the real aircraft compared to the mod, as we now very carefully manage our thrust setting for the next maneuver, because we want to manage that 350 kph for the initial entry into this maneuver, which I absolutely love, which is basically an inverted flat spin, and something the Su-35 there on the left hand side does. And the Su-30 can do that too in real life, and then transition that into an extremely abruptly high alpha level flight. And then there's a sort of UFO maneuver on the left side you see the Su-35 can do, which I've tried a couple of times, and honestly I can't figure out the combination of control inputs that are required for that. I think the pilot in real life maybe even did it by accident. Here we do a transition I think the real aircraft could do. I've never seen it do it. It's basically sort of a half of a tail flip, or a back flip I should say, kudbit in Russian, which is a maneuver that was invented basically by the flanker. And now we do a very simple aileron roll and come in for a split S for the next pass before we start our next set of thrust vectoring maneuvers. Now you hear it in the cockpit there, the sound is kind of whistly. I think that's also slightly unrealistic, as we come in for a 4-point roll, a simple 4-point roll here, which I don't think I've seen an Su-30 do. I'm sure it could do it very easily. Any airplane could pretty much do a 4-point roll. It's got very good rudder authority, so you can keep the nose up at knife edge as well very easily, which is great. Transition this into a sort of an Immelman, a half a loop with a roll over the top to set ourselves up for the next set of vertical maneuvers. And like I was saying, there's a bit of a whistling maneuver, whistling sound in the cockpit, which is a little bit unrealistic, I think, because the whistle comes from idle. When you hear these aircraft taxi in real life, especially, you hear them idling with that sort of whistle sound from the AL31 engines. And I think it shouldn't do that when you're high thrust setting, so I think they could probably take the Su-27 basically south from inside the cockpit and just transfer it across, because, you know, I think those sound pretty good overall. As we do a typical airshow maneuver, the flat spin, a thrust vector flat spin, you see that I was actually using differential thrust on that one. I don't think the real pilots do it, but unfortunately, even with the mod with the yaw input with thrust vectoring and just the split thrust, it still doesn't rotate as quickly around its yaw axis as the real aircraft does. The real aircraft manages to get a hell of a lot more yaw than this one, as we now come in for another vertical maneuver. We set this up, we keep it going, climbing with some thrust, because we need to get a little bit of height. This is going to be a combination of vertical maneuvers. First of all, we're nailing the airspeed, just under 200 kph, but we need max thrust as we reach the top to get maximum effect from the thrust vectored engines, of course, as we do a double kulbit, or a double tail flip, or backflip, I should say. Now transition into, once again, a stalled flat spin. Once again, using split thrust, we do one rotation and then we split the thrust the other way, full opposite rudder, and then start the rotation in the opposite direction. Again, I've never seen them do that in real life, reverse the rotation of the aircraft, but I'm sure they could do it, especially considering the real aircraft spins a hell of a lot more quickly. They could definitely get more rotations out of each direction. So now, once again, breaking all that airflow. This is where the mod, I think, feels kind of realistic, actually. The way that initial bite in pitch, that initial, I want to say it's missing a little bit of static stability in pitch as well. It's a little bit too lethargic, and it needs to be a little bit more stable. But then after that, I think it does a great job, as we now go for a pass with a slow roll that I absolutely love. Very coordinated maneuver using rudder input as well as pitch, and now maximum G, as Rita is telling us for some reason in Russian, which, I'm not really convinced that the Malaysian pilots can speak Russian, but maybe they can. Somebody can correct me. I find that hard to believe, but perhaps not a big shortcoming of the mod. As we now try to nail the airspeed of about 650 kph for the next maneuver, which is a slow turn and then transitioned into a high alpha. The party trick of the Su-30, of course, exceptionally high alpha, basically 70 degrees nose up, something that you cannot do without thrust vectoring, and I don't think any jet ever does that in air shows anyway. And then I thought, you know, it'd be pretty cool, why don't we do a backflip as we come back to that sort of 70 degrees high alpha. Just do a backflip in between the two high alphas. Again, something I've never seen it do in real life. I don't know if it would have that much pitch authority with thrust vectoring at such slow speed. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe that's why they don't do it. I'm not sure. And here, this is where the flight dynamics do break a little bit. If you just kick that rudder too much, the airplane does fly sideways a little bit. I didn't show you an external view because it actually looks a little bit silly in that one. It's just something that, you know, the physics just don't cater for. And I don't know if it's part of DCS that's the problem, or maybe part of the mod. I have to say, the mod is phenomenal, guys. It's just hats off to whoever has been working on the thrust vectoring. I know I have some criticisms about it, especially about that initial pitch and the stability in pitch, but overall, here we just try to nail that speed for a Cobra that the Malaysians do. I don't think that the Russian Su-30 does a Cobra, but the Malaysians do it. You can do it in DCS. That initial breaking of the airflow for it to just basically stand on its tail, like I say, that's where the mod carries a little bit too much momentum. I think there needs to be a hell of a lot more drag on the airplane. when it goes basically belly towards the direction of travel. And the interesting thing about doing a Cobra with the Su-30, of course, is it's not like the Su-27 Cobra, which is done by turning off the flight augmentation system and basically allows the aircraft to exceed critical angles of attack, because with thrust vectoring you can exceed critical angles of attack safely all the time, not just for air shows. And now this is demonstrating the mod's very, very highly realistic flight model, I think, just how similar it looks doing that high alpha roll and standing the nose up now for a super high alpha. And once again, I just decided to do a backflip at the top of that because I think that was cool, and I don't think there's any reason for why they shouldn't be able to do it in real life, but I've never seen them do that. And if you would like to see a full list of changes that is upcoming in the Su-30 mod with probably one of the next updates and what you're seeing in this video, feel free to have a look at the very end. I'll leave basically a list of all the changes that they've done. Overall, I have to say the changes have been extremely positive, especially I have to say for me, looks like the profile drag improvement definitely makes the airplane feel more realistic, a little less overpowered, I think, at times. And overall, I think they've done absolutely phenomenal job. The way how believable they've made thrust vectoring feel here is just incredible. Having said that, I do have some criticisms, as I've said. I think during those critically high alpha energy excursions where you put the belly up towards the direction of travel, I think the airplane just carries way too much momentum compared to the real airplane. It needs to break the airflow a lot more abruptly and have a lot more drag in that situation. I think a lot more induced drag to slow down very abruptly like the real aircraft does. There's also some things I don't really like about the pitch. Like I told you, that initial bite, and it's a little bit static stability is just not great. If you're flying in close formation, it's very, very, very difficult to do because it's so slow to react to small pitch changes. I think that could be improved. Some of the ground handling could be improved. You can't really do air braking in this airplane, keep the nose wheel off the ground like you can in the Su-27. So there are little things here and there which I think definitely could be improved, but overall I have to say, my god, what an incredible mod, what an incredible airplane, and flying it with a full force feedback joystick like I do with FFBeast. Have a look in the link in the description if you're interested. Absolutely incredible. So with that said, folks, hope you've enjoyed it, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next video. Adios.